Hello, good afternoon. Today we are together with Professor Iskan. He is the professor at University of Ludwigshafen and he is also a consultant of the AYSBERG Press and Publishing Group. Hello, welcome Professor Iskan.
Hoş bulduk.
Hoş geldiniz. We have some questions to you as we have found you here. You have been carrying out the tea talk sessions here at the booth since the beginning of logitrans fair. And I have watched and seen that you had very good, fruitful interviews with a lot of sector professionals. But on the other hand, we would like to hear your comments and hear your experiences about the industry, which are very valuable for all of us, in fact. And to start with, my first question will be about Industry 4.0 and digitalization issue. Is this hype solid and valid, according to your opinion?
So yes, we can say we are facing a digital revolution because new business models and digital platform business is attacking long-term traditional companies. And given the fact that there is no end in sight of the IT capabilities and also given the fact of very interesting transportation rates, the entire world is developing to a global village, we can say. Even there's one thing, even we steadily see more and more protectionism and closed borders.
Okay, and do you think also the smart industry a game changer in the land transport of Europe?
For example, the question will be who will steer the European land transport in future? Are these the big logistics freight forwarders like DHL, like Schenker, like Kühne or Gnagel? Is it Uber? Is it something else but using the Uber technology? And what is the role of the subcontractors? Or is it MAN, is it Daimler, who will be the leader of the European land transportation? And they are just combining telematics, they are combining the traditional freight brokerage platforms, so which will be an outdated business model in the future. Is who is the player of the game? Is it a commercial vehicle player with its own telematics? Are these the classical freight forwarding companies? Or is it something new, a player like Uber who has the platform? So they said there will be a big merger, consolidation. I don't see a consolidation. The big companies buy the medium-sized companies, but the small subcontracting companies with drivers, they are still in place. So the big question will be in future, who is steering and controlling the subcontractors? Maybe a platform. And this is the big battle that is currently in place in the entire European transportation, IT and OEM business.
And shouldn't industry and logistics company work on supply chain management first before thinking on a concept like Industry 4.0?
Yeah,
when we are talking about the digitalization, the Industry 4.0, but even before we have that supply chain story that still needs to be pushed a little bit.
Supply chain management, and I seriously ask the participants here of logitrans, do we seriously believe that we are able in industry and trade and logistics industry to fully manage already to a full extent supply chain management? I have my doubts. And if we just partly say, no, and we have some question marks coming from a traditional definition of smart industry or Industry 4.0, which is based on decentralized principles. I question again, how can we manage a global supply chain just relying on decentralized principles? It's more a question of balancing central and decentralized principles, a question of where do we allocate roles, responsibilities, functions in the supply chain. So sometimes it's better to utilize the existing concepts to a full degree before starting something new.
So which topics should the logistics companies work on right now?
Yeah, of course, it's depending on the market we are dealing. When I'm looking to logitrans and Altınay, most likely we will confirm, we see very positive figures also from the exhibitor and participants basis coming. So despite on-bash demos, we can say we have a positive trend ongoing here at logitrans. So anyhow, coming from the Turkish market, of course, when you talk to the participants and exhibitors, to the freight forwarding companies, then they have some challenges like lira depreciation. So I can assume that these kind of companies and markets have to tackle some typical crisis management issues. But if you go to Germany, even we have some issues. Our GDP is merely based on private consumization. consumption, and construction work. And sometimes the forecasting data are positive, sometimes they are negative. But at the end, I guess the logistics companies, they have to tackle some structural and process optimization in their organization, shared service center concepts. For example, where do you balance, where do you allocate your resources, functions like bookkeeping, invoicing, disposition, are you doing it on the branch level, on a regional level, or a more centralized level? So I guess the companies have to do some more homework in process, structures, number of managers, management layers, and of course digitalization.
The part of that homework you're talking about, what about the budget issues? How they are usually balancing this issue?
You know, there is an ongoing demand and increase of outsourcing in logistics over all Europe. So this trend will be continued.
So you also would suggest the Turkish companies to look for the outsourcing opportunities as well?
Yes, for sure. Even Turkish shippers like Paşabahçe, for example, or other companies, they even outsource some very normal assembling tasks to Bulgaria or to Romania, which means it's the European Union, but it's cheaper than in Turkey from a wage salary perspective. So we outsource from Turkey to Europe, if you wish. But the logistics companies, we see an increasing outsourcing volume, which means the turnover is increasing, but at the same time the profitability goes down. That is typical for our industry. So I have my doubts that many companies have the financial power to finance their digitalization. Many big companies we know in Europe, also global players, they just burn money into their IT. That has a historical background. Many of these global players have been grown unorganically by major acquisitions. They bought mid-sized companies, and at the end, the former management, as we can see, has forgotten to harmonize their IT structure. Some of these companies are working based on a platform of the 70s.
So many managers are visiting the Silicon Valley in these days. This seems to be a solid basis for driving change in their organizations. What do you think about this issue?
I have to laugh. Frankly speaking, I have to laugh loud now. Okay. If I send a delegation or an official visit, or I send managers to Istanbul, I send them to Göcek or to New York, they will be as impressed as well. But when they come home, it's still the same. We are still talking about the same decision makers. So I have my doubts. Just to go ahead to the Silicon Valley, to California, and then to go back and say we need to change something, this is not the way we should do. It's not if we need also to change persons. You don't recommend it at all?
No. Okay, all right. In Germany, it's said that the demographic change requires automation and digitalization. Is that the reason for Industrie 4.0, why Industry and Ministry push that topic ahead?
There is no doubt that we have a demographic issue in Germany. That's for sure. Our demographic status is quite similar and comparable to Japan, for example. But I'm not sure whether the demographic issue is the driver of digitalization and, for example, autonomous driving. It's more a question of being efficient and being profitable. So I have my doubts that it's just the demographic question. For example, it's for sure we have a lack of truck drivers. And it's also for sure when you're talking to the logistics companies, we have a lack of dispatchers. But it's not only because of the demographic issue, it's also because of the question, do we give a fair payment to them? How attractive is it anymore? And I'm fully convinced that digitalization and Industry 4.0, or let's call it smart industry, is more a topic for countries with a relatively high labor cost structure. We don't see any robotics in Malaysia, light assembling in automotive. There we see a high number of employees because the amortization of that investment is a little bit hard to achieve. So it's more a topic for countries and nations with a high labor cost structure, I could assume.
When you're talking about this lack of drivers issue, how serious is it in Germany? Because we have been hearing about it from most of Europe for years now. And every year when we're talking to people from the industry, from Germany, they always have big problems about this issue. And we also discussed sometime about like importing drivers from Turkey to Germany. So what's going on? Autonomous vehicles, are they going to be all right? But we still will need some drivers, I guess.
Yes, of course we need drivers. It's depending on your business model. You know, there are some customers, they are demanding trucks with dedicated forklifts, so the truck driver has more tasks than just driving. But at the end, we have a severe issue and a severe lack of driver capabilities and capacities in Germany, that's for sure. You know, the first development of Eastern Europe was Poland, Hungary, Slovakia, Czech Republic. That now we are going and searching for drivers from Romania, Bulgaria. Even they have high expectations on salary because they know the task and they know the conditions and the environment in which they are working. Now we are going and taking some drivers from Belarus, Ukraine. So what's coming next? Maybe your Turkish government has to deal and negotiate the visum issue for your drivers, but even you have some critical things with Bulgaria and the number of visa going to Central Europe. Maybe that might be once in future a solution, but autonomous driving most likely will come, not tomorrow. By the way, when you're talking to the drivers, they even have, I would say, some autonomous functions, like driving assistant systems, but they switch it off because there are a lot of cars who have not that kind of sensoric, and you know, when a 40-ton truck is stepping to the brake, then you have a severe issue for the driver, so they switch it off, but in future we most likely will see that the development and the research will go this direction.
How close is it? What do you think?
Oh, you know, in Germany they're already testing it in a piloting phase, for example, on some motorways in Baden-Württemberg. It's a Daimler future truck. Also in the US they are testing it, so maybe in 10, 15 years we will see. They have very ambitious goals.
Yep.
So this topic is coming, and I mentioned it. The OEMs are driving that, commercial vehicle OEMs. They have the telematics. They are gonna work on the platform business. So maybe we see that kind of Uber business model integrated into a telematic of an OEM connected to the autonomous vehicle, and some of these OEMs are having the European land transportation under control. I have the feeling they don't want to give a piece of the turnover cake to some startups or freight forwarder companies. That's a battle we see actually.
Okay, so going back to Industry 4.0 again, is it still based on a solid ethical ground from your point of view? Very frankly.
I'm not sure whether I'm the right person who has to judge on that. I see some parcel, or let's say some international integrators, they are already using some robotics and automatization attempts also in the last mile delivery. When it comes to Germany, you know, in Germany as in Turkey, we have a minimum wage salary level. Currently it's 8.40 euro. I have my doubts whether some of these managers have in mind what can happen also from a society perspective if we replace the people on the last mile and we replace it via robotics. I have my doubts whether they see what kind of effects could it have for a society. Maybe it's more also there. It's a question of right balancing robotics and human beings.
Okay. And I will have my last question, and this question is specifically for managers who need some advice from your side. How do you think the managers can change their organizations when the sense of urgency cannot be seen in the financial results yet?
There are many books written on that, and also many academics are working on that.
I don't think all the managers are reading the books to find the answer.
Sometimes
so
they should.
Sometimes we need direct advices so that they can follow.
Okay, frankly speaking, first, if you want to make a change happen, you need a radical change leader. A change leader who's also fighting against open opposition in your organization. A change leader that is building a team with experts coming from outside, having no body network structure in your company. And a third idea would be, instead of formally drive your change through your organization, you have to convince and to involve informal networks of your company. There are always pride builders in a company. Persons, other colleagues are able, and they love to hear their voice, their opinion. And if they say, let's go left, they will follow. So no change without a vision, and no change without a radical leader. And if you think on that, then your change can happen.
Okay, thank you very much for your all advices, and it was a pleasure to be with you today.
To me as well, Altınay.
Thank you.
Teşekkürler.
Okay.